Good evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth, to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast in existence. I say it every week. I promise you, it's a declaration. I'm also a man of my word. The only podcast in existence. For all the viewers at home who regularly watch, the only podcast in existence that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. That's from Casino. It's one of my favorite movies. I hope everybody knows that by now, but if you don't, it's okay. That's fine. You can make it up to me by following me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro2_ANT, or if follows still aren't your thing, that's fine. As I say every week, I'll take a blank check or the deed to your house. I'm very agreeable to most things. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. To cover one as a whole, if you're here live with us, please drop a like on this video. If you're watching later, please drop a like. That's kind of it for the intro. Usually sometimes I dilly-dally or make some more jokes or say some more things. Also, if you're listening, I hope you would have seen the episode show notes because I'm not alone in this episode. Mr. Kendall Mirsky has joined me. But if you didn't know that and you weren't watching live, maybe you were like, oh, it sounds like he's talking to somebody. And it's because I am. Kendall, you rode with me last night on the film room when Eric stabbed us in the back and left us to fend for ourselves.
Yes,
you rode with me several times on Disguise Coverage, and now you're back again. And it seems like every time you're here, something big happens. Because the last time you were here, 7 minutes before we went live, the Bills signed Von Miller and O.J. Howard. And now we have this news dropping today of the Stefon Diggs contract extension, which I should preface this for everyone. We're going to do in tonight's episode. Kendall and I are going to priority rank our top 3 needs going into the NFL draft. We did this before free agency started, but now the dust has settled a little bit. We've seen positions and areas of needs addressed in free agency. Now we're reassessing the priorities given the moves in free agency, and then we're going to pick a player or two for each of those needs based on days in the draft. So day 1, basically round 1. Day 2, a round 2 or 3 target. Day 3, a round 4 or later target. That's what we're going to do for the episode. We want to hear your questions, thoughts, comments, concerns. Who do you like at all these positions? What positions do you think need to be addressed? All that kind of stuff. But before we do that, as I mentioned, Kendall, you seem to just be positively cursed. So gifted, I should say, because the last time you were here, the Von Miller news, the O.J. Howard news, and now we're going to start with, as I changed the banner, some news that happened earlier today, very early in the morning, a little early morning Brandon Bean action, I guess, or maybe, I don't know, maybe he just stays up so late that this is still late night, like Bean after dark type of thing, and he's still just riding the night. But contract extension for Stefon Diggs, 4 years, $104 million, $70 million guaranteed, which if you're looking at the top 3 guaranteed wide receiver money, it's Tyreek Hill at number 1 at 72.2. Then it's Stefon Diggs at number 2 at 70, and then Devontae Adams third at 65. A boatload of money, which we're going to talk to in a bit. But I also wanted to get your thoughts overall. How do you feel about this extension? Because as we were talking offline, there was a decent amount, I don't want to say a subset, but there was a pretty vocal group amongst Bills Mafia that were against a potential Diggs contract extension because of the financial ramifications and the quote-unquote cap stress or strap cap that it would put the Bills under. So given the money, how do you feel right now with the extension for Stefon Diggs?
Well, I'll start by saying it was literally wake-up news for me. I was asleep as it happened.
Right,
I'm over here on the West Coast, so I woke up and I was just like, why is everyone talking about Diggs? Did we trade him? I swear to God. And then I did some digging and I was like, yes, finally we did it. We re-signed him, or we extended him. We got that money on the books. We can spread it out. So that was really exciting to me. But I think the main thing that I feel like the reason if people are against it because of this. No one knows how much cap space the Bills have right now.
I was going to say the full details of like year by year. We know some, which we're going to get into after Kendall gives his initial thoughts, but we've got some money things that we know, but the full, like, here's the cap hit each year, blah, blah, blah. We have some things that we can kind of piece together that we're going to give you guys on the show, but the official year by year thing isn't completely known right now. But yes, continue. Also, I thought this comment was funny too. Traz said, because of all every time you come on something happens, it sounds like that means Kendall needs to be on more often.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to mean good acquisitions and good extensions and all that stuff, I'll be on every time you need me, man. I thought it was great news. I'm happy about it. The fact that it spreads money out and it keeps him on the team. We were talking before the show, like, he is a core member of this team. There are people that could argue that, yeah, it does kind of strap you for cash going forward. And, no one really knows where we are cap space wise. But by doing this, you kind of get that cap coupon like Greg always talks about. It allows you to free up money now
There's
and
always money in
make
the banana stand.
additional moves now. And maybe this gives us enough money to go ahead and finally sign Joe Hayden. Like,
Or
those are the
Bryce
kind of
Callahan.
I'm so sorry. I should have said Bryce
How
Callahan.
dare you? I can't believe
I
you.
should know that by
Man.
now.
Get out.
But
You're done. This isn't going to work.
But that's the thing that's exciting about it. It's the fact that obviously since he's gotten to Buffalo, nothing but great things. Obviously, people were spinning all sorts of ruckus about him being a diva again, literally like in his final parting ways in Minnesota. Everyone was like thinking that this is happening again in Buffalo, and it's just takes time. I mean, contracts take time, and we know Bean is working on it. He's always working on stuff to keep the guys he likes in place. And clearly it was just a matter of time, and he finally got it done. And it seems like it's team friendly and it's player friendly, because it's going to give Diggs the money he deserves, but it's also going to spread it out in a way that helps out the team in their Super Bowl window. So I really like the way that it's built out, and the fact that we get to keep a core member of this team as a member of this team.
That's really the way. Sorry, I got distracted. Timeout, Ronald. Bryce Callahan played outside corner in 2020, and he had the lowest quarterback rating against, and he had a 53.7 reception percentage, which was like the 11th lowest in the league against a variety of receivers like Mike Evans, Darren Waller, Jakeem Grant. He's very much more than a slot corner, but he gives you slot corner depth behind Taron Johnson. We broke him down in an episode of the Cover One Film Room. I suggest you go back and take a peek because it was fantastic. Granted, I'm biased because we did that episode, but nonetheless, you hit on a very interesting point, and I was going to go in the order you did, but I'm going to go in backwards order because we got a super chat that relates to this. So one, Chevy YT, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the super chat and the donation. And for the comment, he says, as much as we hate him, Gilmore equals a trophy. This is the thought, right? So Stefon Diggs, man, it's going to be rough. Two Stefans, but they're spelled differently. Right? Oh, can they coexist? Stefon Diggs' cap hit in 2022 prior to this extension was scheduled to be $17.9 million. His cap hit in 2023 was slated to be $18 million. So roughly the same, right? What we expect from this extension is the cap hit in 2022 and 2023 will be lowered. More kind of a back-end loading type of thing, which we talked about on the salary cap spectacular at this point, taking the signing bonus, taking base salary, converting it to signing bonus, lowering the cap hit for this individual year, prorating that money over the lifespan of the rest of the contract. Stefon Diggs was the perfect candidate for it because we wanted to keep him. He should be extended. He should be on this team. The money works out, so on and so forth. But this is what that kind of does. Like, and I'm going to talk about what Diggs being on the team means in a minute, but from a monetary perspective, right? Because here's, Chevy's comment is there, and then Ronald's comment is Gilmore wants money, but now you have some more money in the banana stand. You've cashed in some of the money from the banana stand. You open it up and you found the $100,000 that was in there before you burned the banana stand down, or burned it down and took the money with it. And then you got choked by your dad, and then your dad got yelled at for no touching because he's in prison, and it's a whole connected thing. Arrested Development. I hope everyone knows.
But you gotta know by now.
I love that show so much. But now you've got more money potentially available. Again, the official cap hit has not been released, but connecting dots, you don't even have to be a capologist or a guy who's really up on it. This is something the Bills have done each year with their extensions, the guys they extend. It's designed to give them more cap relief in these immediate years. And then you backload the contract because salary cap's going to keep going up. I would expect it to go up another $20-30 million over the next couple of years. It's going to keep rising and rising and rising. But for this immediate year, what's nice, Kendall, you and I have talked about it on Twitter. We've talked about it on the show. We are both very much in the camp of the Bills need reinforcement at cornerback. And I don't think we're in the minority in that. I think a lot of people are very vocal in that.
Yeah.
But we also like the idea of, even if you take a corner in round one, you still got to bring in that vet off the street, right? From free agency, platoon him a little bit. You don't want to just throw that rookie right into the fire. This gives the Bills more ammunition to go out and sign, whether it was a Bryce Callahan, fingers crossed, or Joe Hayden's probably on the cheaper end.
Mm-hmm.
Stefon Gilmore, who like people are talking about, like he's going to want money and he kind of deserves it. He's only several years away from being the defensive player of the year. In his limited action last year with Carolina, he looked pretty good despite the fact that he got beat by Stefon Diggs for a touchdown when the Carolina came here. He's still a very capable corner. He's as professional as he comes. I know a lot of people talked about like the negatives with him from the comment of like him wanting to play on primetime and so on and so forth. But as much as we don't want to give people like credit in New England, Bill Belichick, like he doesn't really break the bank for free agents. He did for Stefon Gilmore and then raved about how professional he was and his approach to playing football. And like Gilmore may be kind of, a prickly guy. I'm trying to say this in a nice way or may rub some people the wrong way, but on the field and his approach to the game, he is as professional as they come. And whether it's him, whether it's a move somewhere else, you could still put in some trade candidates at this point. If the Bills can create roughly, I don't know, anywhere around double-digit cap space. I know there's been some different numbers floated out. Some people saying anywhere from 5+, some reports and numbers being around like $10 to $12 million in cap space created. I don't want to speculate too much, but I would expect it to be around the $8 to $10-ish million in cap space mark. That gives you the opportunity to be like, okay, Stefon Gilmore, do you want like a 1 year, $7 million deal? Like, is that something that intrigues you? The championship and, kind
play on primetime now.
Boom, play on primetime, reestablish your name a little bit, fit into a defense that has other star players where you don't have to be the sole focal point. It gives the Bills options in theory, again, because this cap hit for 2022 should be knocked down, as should the cap hit for 2023. And then you're not paying for it on the back end because, like we talked about, Stefon Diggs is a core member of this team. And that's where like the on-field part comes in. I know there were people who were against this move, and they used that notion of, well, look what the Chiefs did with Tyreek Hill. Look what the Packers did with Devontae Adams. But those teams have money locked up in other areas. Like look at the Chiefs, for example, right? Like we were just talking about this offline. You've got Patrick Mahomes, you've got Chris Jones, you've got Travis Kelce. 3 prime guys, 3 highly paid guys for their position. Like Travis Kelce broke the tight end bank and then Kittle did. Chris Jones is one of the highest paid interior defenders and defensive lineman, period. Mahomes gets paid like $1 million every half a second in life or whatever the hell that stupid number is. Diggs is that Travis Kelce or that Chris Jones to the Bills. He is that big top tier core. You've got your Josh Allen, you've got your Tre'Davious White, you've got your Stefon Diggs. Those are the 3 core players. And then you've got like that second tier in the core where it's Deion Dawkins. And then it was like, okay, is it going to be Tremaine Edmonds? Well, maybe now it's Matt Milano. Is it going to be Dawson Knox and Ed Oliver or so on and so forth? You have that tier classification broke down. Diggs was going to be here to stay. He is a stud of a receiver. 2020, his first year with the Bills, first in receptions with 147, including the playoffs, first in yards with 1,846, first in targets with 193. And then he had a down year last year that everybody wanted to talk about. And in his down year, he was 5th in targets, 6th in catches with 109, tied for 8th in touchdowns with 10. He was 6th in first downs, and then he was 8th in yards with 1,292 in a down year.
And you can't forget what that down year did for people like Gabe Davis.
Connect the dots. Tell him about it. Go ahead.
I mean, we talked about it in the Chiefs game, in the divisional game, and he talked about it in his radio appearances where it's like, yeah, I'm okay with it. Josh talked about how in the locker room he was okay with it because he let Gabe eat. The Chiefs had to respect for Stefon Diggs and the presence that he has on this offense and how much attention he's going to garner. And by doing that, you open up windows for guys like Dawson Knox, for guys like Gabe Davis, for guys out on the flat like Isaiah McKenzie or Devin Singletary. So that's part of keeping your fastball. It's part of it. You have to have that guy that's going to threaten defenses to keep a safety over top or maybe shade a nickel in that direction if they're in zone. Whatever it is, you have to respect that guy. And without Diggs, is a team really respecting Gabe Davis to that level, despite how much we all respect Gabe Davis?
It's so funny.
Are other teams doing that?
No. And it's so funny how I got into a discussion with a person on Twitter a couple weeks ago who was against signing Diggs. And his response was, Well, look what happened in the divisional round. The offense balled out, and it was because of Gabe Davis. It had nothing to do with Diggs. And I was like, why do you think Gabriel Davis was seeing the looks that he was
It
seeing?
was all because
It's
of
because
Diggs.
of Diggs. You know who else it was because of? And I keep talking about it. It's also a little bit because of Cole Beasley, because
Yeah.
teams like to bracket Cole Beasley because he's a threat. That's going to be a potential big loss. I wanted to get to a couple more questions. Chris Kepner says, I would think Gilmore can also play in the Bills scheme, right? Yes, he can function in zone. He can function in man. He can function in both worlds. And like we talked about last night in the film room, I know everybody thinks the Bills as like a zone defense, and technically they are, but they play a lot of pattern match zone, which functions basically like man coverage. So Stefon Gilmore would be right at home, not to mention all the 3-by-1 sets where the single wide receiver side, the Bills usually like to go man coverage on that guy. So now you don't necessarily have to do it with Tre'Davious White. You can just do it with Stefon Gilmore, and you don't have to throw a safety over the top. It opens up a lot of avenues. He is scheme diverse and scheme versatile. I had some other thoughts, but I kind of violated my own rule because we saw some super chats late. So we got to get to the super chats. And there's a lot of comments, and I'm going to try and get to all of them, but got to get to it. Waterfowl Fanatic, thank you very much for being here and for your donation. He says, pretty sure the salary cap is a myth at this point, and that he loves the show. Thank you very much for the kind words and for the donation. And yeah, I was going to make the joke today and I didn't. I made the Edgeman's joke again instead. But I think this was one, as soon as this deal was made, this was another one that I thought, like, this is another feather in the cap for the salary cap as a myth crowd. Like, this is another one for them just to be like, see, it's fake. Look what the Saints are doing. Now Bill's got Diggs. It's fake, yada, yada. Oh, and then here's Eric, thank you very much for being here and for your super chat. He says, my credit card is just a myth, right? Doesn't that commercial say I don't need to pay? You're correct. You don't need to pay. Just keep kicking the can down the road. You never have to pay it. Just charge, and you will be completely fine. But it's fun for the financial perspective, right, of this offseason. I think a lot of us started to transition into draft mode. And it was like, okay, because, free agency's done, yada, yada. Bills don't have a lot of money. Now it's like, okay, maybe Stefon Gilmore, Joe Hayden, Bryce Callahan for me. I'm a big fan of his. Or, as someone mentioned in the chat, and I was going to get to it, but he beat me to it, maybe this potentially opens up the idea for a James Bradbury trade.
Right.
Maybe that's another avenue. At the end of the day, whoever you're looking at, even if it's a position we haven't considered, maybe, sounds crazy, I don't know, maybe the Bills swing back and it's like, you know what? I'm Brandon Beane. I'm still pissed about J.D. McKissick. I want Saquon Barkley. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying it's a possibility, but throwing it out there for the perspective of there could be guys at other positions where the Bills now can be players in that market because they will have some financial flexibility due to the cap space open from Stefon Diggs. And another, you mentioned Gabriel Davis, and this is one I wanted to touch on briefly with this extension. I wonder what it does for the future of Gabriel Davis, because now we're sitting here, right? So Josh Allen, if we're looking at it from, and these guys deserve to be at the top, but the highest paid guys are going to be Josh, Stefon Diggs, and Tre'Davious White, which they should be. Josh Allen is arguably the best quarterback and like the best player in the NFL, which is ridiculous. Tre'Davious White is a top 5 corner, which is a high premium position. Stefon Diggs is one of the top 5, or at worst, top 7 wide receivers in the NFL, deserves to be paid at that level. And he's arguably the best route runner, right? So now you've got those guys. And then you've got that second tier, like we talked about, where you've got the Deion Dawkins, you've got the Matt Milano. Now you have to start making decisions. Okay, what does that Oliver's contract look like? What does Dawson Knox's contract look like? As much as people want to make fun and make jokes, what does Tremaine Edmonds' contract look like? What happens with Hyde and Poyer? And then Gabriel Davis, the way he played at the back end of the last year, throws his hat into that ring. Wide receivers get paid a boatload of money. Look what Zay Jones got with the Jags. Look what Christian Kirk got with the Jags. No disrespect to them, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but it's going to sound that way. Number 2 receivers get paid on the open market as if they're number 1s. It happens every single year. Teams overspend and overpay for guys that they think can give an immediate impact, which they can. Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, I think the Jags should have kept DJ Chark, but Kirk and Jones, I guess, make that receiver room better, but they overpaid tremendously. Same thing with New England last year. Look what they paid Algalore and Kendrick Bourne, who I like both those guys. I don't like them at the contract that they got, but you take somebody like Gabriel Davis, who has size, stature, blocking ability, a good head on his shoulders, the ability to make highlight reel spectacular catches, in addition to adding nuance to his routes. I wonder now with how much money and I have an answer, but I want to give you the floor first. I wonder with all the money they've given to Stefon Diggs, What do you think this means potentially as of now, where we stand for the future of Gabriel Davis in a Bills uniform?
I mean, it's so interesting, especially considering the arc that he's on. The way he's been developing and the way he's been progressing through his career, it has been linear, and we're not supposed to expect that, but that's what he's given us. He has given us back-to-back productive seasons and a second season where he had seemingly less opportunities, but he grew into those opportunities. And once he got those opportunities in the late
Mhm.
portion of the season, you could see that he was growing. He was growing with those opportunities. So it's really tough to forecast that because it is a wait and see kind of thing. And it's really interesting because it's all juxtaposed to with what they're gonna do in the draft. Like it'll be very telling based on how high they draft a wide receiver. If
Mhm.
I'm expecting them to draft a wide receiver,
In the
but
first 4 rounds, I think it's a pretty safe bet, right?
say if they draft one in the first versus drafting one in the fourth, if they draft one in the fourth, they could feel a lot stronger about, yeah, we're probably going to have to pay Gabe a decent chunk of money. So
Mhm.
let's not invest so heavily in a first round guy and instead invest in a fourth round guy and hope he just gives us a massive ROI.
Mhm.
So it'll be very telling to see how they invest in the wide receiver position and then extrapolate that to how they feel about Gabe Davis and the prospects of re-signing him. But it's extremely difficult to forecast because of the way he's been developing. It's been outstanding for someone who was a fourth round pick, right?
Yeah, for a 4th round pick who, only ran a 40 in the 4.5s, but still has this ability to take the top off of
Yeah.
defenses in 2 high looks and get vertical and make plays. And I think it's a very, you hit the nail on the head really for where I wanted to take the discussion. If the Bills take a receiver in round 1 this year, maybe even round 2, but if they take a receiver early, and when I say early, I mean round 1 or 2,
Mm-hmm.
I think not that it puts writing on the wall, but I think that potentially puts Gabriel Davis is his future in Buffalo in somewhat of a, jeopardized state. Not because he's not worth it, not because he's not good, but maybe they are hedging their bets because they're like, you know what? This receiver class is super deep. We can get a guy who can help us this year, but also maybe it stems the tide a little bit and mitigates the loss if Gabriel Davis is going to be a free agent. He I don't know why, and this is just pure hunch and gut feeling. He also seems like the type of dude who he likes it here, and I could see
Yeah.
him doing a Milano type of thing and being like, you know what,
Same.
it's cool. I'll stay for a little bit more, or stay for a little bit less, and keep riding this thing with Josh and Diggs. And
Mm-hmm.
again, that happens. Like, granted, it's usually with veterans, but we made the joke, you and I, on the Von Miller episode. The Bills kind of have a little bit of that LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Miami Heat thing where you
Yes.
got dudes who are vets who could get paid somewhere else, but they're like, you know what? This team is sick. I'll take less money and go here because I have a pretty good shot to win a ring and I'm going to keep doing it. Maybe that's Gabriel Davis's thing. My individual opinion, and it's similar to yours here. I think with what we saw from Davis last year, I like his skill set and his frame and his use in today's NFL. Because here's a big thing for me, and I don't want to get too off topic with it, but when you have teams that play you with 2 high safeties, right? Those safeties, when you run the ball and when you have run action, those safeties have to come from the top and they have to come down and make plays, right? Which means you need receivers who can dig out those safeties and block those safeties, in addition to blocking edge players, outside linebackers, box defenders, anything like that, right? The NFL, the defenses are shifting to more of a 2 high world.
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel Davis's versatility in a 2 high world is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's also similar to somebody who you like very much. I think Drake London is a guy who fits that 2 high world. He can block,
Yes.
he can win in a variety of ways. He's a big X receiver, more traditional, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But Gabriel Davis has value in and of himself, let alone in the way the NFL is starting to move. As offenses start to circle back a little bit and realize we got to run the ball a little bit more. We got to use some more play action to force teams out of these 2 high looks. But then we also still need to get vertical and beat those 2 high looks over the top. Gabriel Davis allows you to play in the light and the dark. He's like Blade.
Yes.
He's Daywalker. He can do both. And that's a rare thing. And I don't want to overstate the play of a second-year receiver, former 4th-round pick going into his 3rd year. But I think he's the type of guy who a team sees and is like, I like that guy. Let's give him $14 million a year.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting there 2 years from now and everybody's like, I can't believe Gabriel Davis got the Christian Kirk deal. Or like, what is going on? I can't believe who's a team that does foolish things? I can't believe the Houston Texans signed Gabriel Davis to the Christian Kirk deal. Like, it's a possibility.
If he keeps performing on this arc that he's at, he's gonna get there. He's gonna get that deal, especially with the way the cap space is going up and up and up, and that TV deal is gonna hit by the time that he's on the open market. So there's a lot to consider here, and I think it really does put into perspective everything Bean talks about when he says drafting for now and the future, and that's exactly what we'd be doing this year with the wide receiver position. Because I think both us and most people in the chat would agree we all want Davis here long term.
Fantastic.
You got to make financial decisions somewhere, and unfortunately, he might be one of those loose ends. Not because he doesn't deserve it, mostly because the Bills just can't afford it. He legitimately may play himself out of Buffalo, but
Correct.
like you said, he could take that team friendly deal. I mean, a lot of rookies and vets in Buffalo have talked about, I mean, mostly the rookies, they talk about how amazing it is to play in Buffalo, and they talk to the vets on the team that have been all around the league, and they're like, yeah, it's never been like it is here.
Look at
Like,
Emmanuel
you're
Sanders,
so lucky to
still
have
just
it
like
here.
banging. Emmanuel Sanders is just still banging the drum for how awesome Buffalo is.
Exactly. So you never know. We're pure speculating here, but it is a possibility, and it's something to talk about, especially as the draft approaches.
And it's such a weird thing now to be in this position where, like, again, you're used to it as I am. Like, we're so used to the Bills just being like bad, and I'm not in this position where I'm like, we have too many good people and we can't pay all of them. Like, what do we do? And that's where, if you just look at the offense, right, it's going to be hard to have Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs, Dawson Knox, given how stupid the tight end market went this offseason. Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs, Dawson Knox, and Gabriel Davis as your weapons package. Like, again, unless Knox or Davis potentially take a somewhat hometown type of deal or discount type of thing. But again, I trust in Bean, and we're still 2 years down the road from this. Davis is here this year. He's here next year as well. But it's something to definitely think about. And with this money given to Diggs, right, it's the opposite of what the Packers look to do and the Chiefs look to do, which is, okay, we're going to take that money we could have given that one guy. Let's disperse it over several other B-plus players and try and strengthen things that way and not lose our window completely. But again, in those teams, they already had their top-tier core guys paid. Diggs is now that third guy, right? Which means, not that they're the same, but Gabriel Davis and Dawson Knox, if we want to compare the Bills to the Chiefs, because every Bills fan does that, Dawson Knox and Gabriel Davis are now the Tyreek Hill. And now it's like, okay, can you afford him? Is he willing to be afforded or affordable for your team? Or do you have to trade him? When do you do it? What do you do? A lot of long-term potential ramifications. Yeah. I'm going to stop talking about football for a moment. And I want to recognize Amy, because Amy said, this warms my heart. Amy says to me that she's loving my Easter tree. And she said, do you get credit or your beautiful other half? Workhorses with very little rest. Thank you for your time. You guys are stretched out. Keep up the awesome insight at Cover One. Thank you so much for the kind words, Amy. I appreciate the hell out of you. And so it was a St. Patrick's Day tree up until 6:51. So like, a little while ago. I took down the St. Patrick's Day garland, but my wife decorated that. And then my wife also put up the Easter sign there. And then the little pastel, damn, I'm horrible, a little pastel Easter tree where the ornaments are eggs. Fantastic. Love it. And then she also put the little moss bunny right there. So I did like 5% of it. She did 95%. She does 95% of all the decor. Although I hung all the pictures. That's on me. I'm a man. I take care of stuff.
I hang pictures.
I'm a child. I hate hanging pictures. It's like a really stressful thing. I'm not good
I'm
at
with
it.
you.
And my wife was just like, oh, hang this. And I'm like, yeah. And in my mind, I'm like, oh,
it's not straight. Like it's not centered in the room.
I'm always afraid that like it's going to fall. Like I'm going to hang it. And then I leave the room and I just hear a crash. And I'm like, oh, like But thank you very much, Amy, for recognizing the tree. I appreciate you. And my wife will appreciate you recognizing everything. But very exciting with the tree change. That's why you're all here. But exciting with the tree, exciting with Stefon Diggs. And again, it's I made a joke on Twitter earlier that led to a Tremaine Edmonds joke, but it's really nice to see again, the organization's commitment to winning and going after it, whether it's the Pagulas,
Yes.
whether it's Bean, whether it's McDermott, whatever. Getting Von Miller, re-upping Josh Allen last year, re-upping Stefon Diggs now, the Hyde deals, the Poyer deals, the Tre'Davious White deal, the Deion Dawkins deal, the Matt Milano deal, like everything, they are building something that 10 to 15 years from now, you hope is still sustainable. And maybe they're not a perennial Super Bowl favorite every year, but they're a team that is always in the dance. Like we are starting to see the building blocks of sustainability. And that comes from a winning culture. And that winning culture and desire to win comes from the very tippy top, whether it's front office leadership or ownership. I know people are very wishy-washy on the Pagulas, especially if you're a Buffalo person overall and you see what's been going on with the Sabres, which is an absolute dumpster fire and certainly falls at their feet and on their shoulders as an ownership group. But things with the Bills, fingers crossed and knock on wood, have been smooth sailing so far. And it's nice to see that commitment to know, like, I feel like this could have been a Bills move of old where the GM was told, like, listen, we already paid Josh Allen. You can't pay that other guy. I know he's worth it. We can't pay Stefon Diggs, so trade him now because we can't pay for him. Like, but we don't have that. Like, this organization's committed to this spot. They have a real window right now. They're going after it. You cannot downplay that or overstate that importance to this fan base, to this city, all that stuff. And as EDY says earlier in what we're saying, it is a good problem to have. You've got all these good players and you have to figure out a way to fit them. So really nice job for the Bills keeping Stefon Diggs. And as Donnie says, keep in mind the cap will be jumping exponentially. We talked about that earlier, and that's a very exciting thing for Diggs and this team and this deal. And we could probably do an entire episode just on what this means and all the good vibes. But we've got some other conversations to have, and that is some draft talk, because the Bills the Bills do still have needs. They may not be holes, they may not be deficiencies or vulnerabilities, but they still have needs to fill on this team. And so, like I mentioned earlier, what we're going to do, we're going to start with our priority one, Kendall and I each, and we don't know each other's answers. We don't know what priority 1, 2, or 3 is. We don't know who the targets are on each day for each of those priorities. So we're finding out organically as you all are at home. And what we'd like to do, as always, we encourage it here on Disguised Coverage. What is your priority number 1? Who are your targets for those priorities? Or if you want to just take it easier and be more reactive, cool, that's nice and easy and fun as well. When we give our priorities and our targets, let us know. Oh, awesome priority. Psst, stupid priority. Psst, Anthony, you're so much smarter than Kendall. What is Kendall doing? Why is he on this show? Any of those comments are very much encouraged and welcome. So play along at home with us. But Kendall, as we start to shift gears here a little bit, priorities, needs, it's part of the reason why I brought you back. We did this for free agency. And as I mentioned in the intro, the landscape has changed. The dust has settled a little bit for this Bills team. So now we go into the draft, which is about 3 weeks away from tomorrow. It is literally 3 weeks away from tomorrow. Round 1 is 3 weeks from tomorrow, which is insane because it feels like the season just ended. What position is your priority number 1? And we'll start with who your, again, ideal target is in round 1. And again, part of it is based in realism. Like, so if we're going to say, for example, if I'm saying like, oh, priority 1 is corner, I'm not going to say my round 1 corner is Sauce Gardner or Derek Stanley because they're going to be gone. So this is steeped in realism, how we think the board will fall, and then how to navigate those waters based on the board. So Kendall, the floor is yours.
So I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that both of our priority 1s are going to be corner. I mean, as much
Mine's
as this
quarterback.
Good one.
Malik Willis.
You got me.
Round 1.
As much as this is going to be organic, I think we both knew without even talking to each other that was going to be our number 1 priority. And this was the same number 1 priority going into free agency, and it hasn't been addressed yet. So it's going to stay as number 1. So yeah, it's still my number 1 priority. Like we talked about before when we were talking about Gilmore, Hayden, Callahan, all those guys. I'd like to match a day 1 pick with a vet. That way, I mean, ideally that day 1 pick should be able to start, but I don't want to put the pressure on him to start. So that's kind of why I would also like to.
And the Bills also favor that. The Bills are very much like, I don't want to say training wheels, but they are very much like, let's ease you in and see what happens as you go.
And make you earn it to an extent.
Good point. Very good point.
So my ideal first target, and it really hinges on the precipice of realism, but I'm saying Andrew Booth. Andrew Booth from Clemson is an interesting one because he has some flashy tape. His 2020 tape, I believe, was better than his 2021 tape,
Very true.
but he also had some injury concerns and he hasn't been able to test and everything. So he could be slipping on boards simply because teams don't have answers on the athletic testing numbers and all that stuff. If teams put a lot of importance on that, he could slip by a couple of teams and make his
Mhm.
way down to 25. And the fact that 2021 tape was a bit of a step back from the standout 2020 tape, teams like to see some growth as you progress through college. So that those are reasons that he could fall to 25. I'm
Yes.
not banking on it, but I'm really hoping on it. And that's kind of why it's on the precipice of realism. And I'm
Is
gonna
he
say it.
is he corner 3 for you?
He is.
Okay.
He is my corner 3. That being said, I have not deep dove McDuffie. So
Oh, you're
Mc,
missing out.
yeah, that's literally like on cue for once I dive into
Fair.
the other corners. So he could easily fall down to 4, but I think, yeah, I think he'll probably be in that 3-4 range. But yeah, the big thing about Booth is the quick, twitchy athleticism just pops
Yes.
off the tape. Like, dude
Mhm.
has burst, like real burst and acceleration. And that's why I'm really interested to see his testing numbers. He's got 31.5-inch arms. So, he ticks that box for, he's
Don't
not a
worry.
T-Rex or an alligator or any of that stuff. He's 6 feet tall, 194 pounds. So he's got that ideal archetype size frame fit.
Mhm.
So that's encouraging. And then what he does at Clemson is it's not the same as what the Bills do, but they run intricate zone schemes. And
Yes.
because they run intricate zone schemes, it intrigues me a lot. But also the athletic profile that he has and that quick twitchiness and the way he's able to be athletic in his reaction skills
Yes.
to what wide receivers are doing in front of him. If he ever, is wrong with his footwork early on in press or anything like that, he has the recovery athleticism to catch up and make a
Even in just
play.
basic, like, backpedaling coverage, like, the simplest
Mhm,
things, you can just see how bursty and twitchy he is
mhm.
with his athleticism. Like, just the simplest, like, hike and just a backpedal, it's to me like, "Oh, look at that guy. Look
Yeah,
how he moves." Yeah.
it's very natural for him. So, and because of that, even though he wasn't like a true man corner, he's someone that can play man just based on those traits, based on the athletic traits that he shows on tape. You can trust that with some coaching, if he isn't good
Yes.
in man, like if you just refine some of those edges in man, and I'm not even saying he's bad, but if he is, I didn't have enough to go on here. But if he isn't great or insufficient or a liability in man, he's got the athleticism to get coached up and it could become a strong suit for him. So I like the scheme versatility and then overall the fit onto the Bills.
I think
And
that's very
and he was
cool.
a top 30 visit, which I
Very
learned
true.
like 45 minutes ago.
There you go. There you go. Breaking news that likes to come in on this show. Um, I like Booth. I'm gonna just touch on Booth. Buh, I am horrible with words tonight, which isn't good considering I have to speak on this show. Not
Keep
ideal.
going.
I like Andrew Booth. I'm gonna touch on him briefly before passing to you for your day 2 and your day 3 targets. But Booth, yeah, our whole theme this offseason has been, the scheme versatility piece. And my individual theme has been the whole rock, paper, scissors analogy.
Mhm.
And I think Booth ticks that box in a big way. That type of athleticism, the physicality, the speed, the burst, the explosion, combined with the technicality pieces of his hands and his footwork and just the functional athleticism that you see from him
Yeah,
is genuinely very impressive. And I think he's that type of guy that I think in 2021 he was trying to do too much. I think he
that's
tried to
fair.
overcompensate, especially considering I think it was Eric Turner who said it, that alpha mentality that he has, that dog
Mhm.
mentality where he just like he wants to be that guy and needs to
Mhm.
be that guy. And not for selfish reasons. Like that's just how he is. And when that happens, sometimes you overcompensate and you stretch yourself too thin. And you just saw him playing too out of control and too aggressive in
Yes.
2021, whether in coverage, whether in the run game. He had some plays coming up against the run where he would annihilate a running back or a receiver or
Yes.
tight end. And then the very next play would just whiff completely and get nothing but air. And it was that up and down in the
Mhm.
run support game and in the coverage game. But he is one of those guys that, given his skill set and his scheme fit, like we talked about in the film room last night, you bring him into an organization that allows you to be the best version of yourself and coaches up those strong building blocks and foundational pieces. he's a guy who I really like in this corner class, and I'd be very happy with him at 25. And so now we move on to your day 2. So it could be somebody in round 2, or it could be somebody in round 3, because that's what day 2 is. So what do you got for day 2?
So my day 2 guy is Martin Emerson. I'm assuming
Damn it,
he'll
so is
be
mine.
Really? I
Yeah,
was
awesome.
assuming you were gonna take Taylor Britt, so I
No, I
picked
love
Emerson.
Emerson. Continue.
That's
I
funny.
thought you would take Britt.
No, I took Emerson. Everyone, like we've talked about, everyone and their mom is talking about Taylor Britt, so we should give them some
Time out,
differentiation.
Kendall.
Yeah, let's stop it.
Ned, you're the reason my bills are paid and the light is on in my house. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. And not even just for the super chat and the donation, but consistently being here. And so many of you guys, it's super fun to see the regular names and YouTube icons in the chat of and the names, because you see everybody regularly, and the camaraderie we built on this network. And specifically for me, I see a lot of the same faces in Disguise coverage and in the film room. So Ned is definitely one of those. So thank you so much for being here live again and being here always, and for the super chat and the comment that comes with it, which is many mock drafts see top cornerbacks Gardner, Stingley, McDuffie, and even Booth going before 25. Do you guys, this is a very good question. Do you guys see the Bills sacrificing the second round pick to move up into the teens to nab one of those guys? Ooh, I think it's a non-zero chance. To steal Greg Thompson's word there, or phrase there. I don't see it happening. I don't feel it. I think if the only way I see them sacrificing, and even the only way they're going to sacrifice it is if someone's close. If someone's falling to 16 or 17, and if that's the case, I don't think it costs a second. The only way I think it costs a second is if you're moving up into definitely the top 10, maybe even the top 12, 13, 14-ish. And if that's the case, that's too much. I'm not doing that. I value those first 4 picks given the needs on this team. I don't put it out of the realm of possibility at all. I could see them trading up, especially if one of those guys fall into the later teens and the Bills want to move from 25 to 21 or 25 to 19, so on and so forth. If they think, well, screw it, our guy's not going to be there. And then all of a sudden it's oh, our guy is there, but the 4 teams in front of us might take a corner, especially with Arizona at 23. they really could snatch up that guy you're coveting. I think you could see a chance to move up there, but a second would require them to move up high, and I don't necessarily see them doing that. Kendall, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the only way they move up is kind of with that smoky rumor we had the other day with a veteran player. I don't think they're going to move up using a second round pick. And Bean has talked about how stacked the middle portion of this draft is. And for that reason, I don't think he's going to try to part ways with those picks. If anything, he's going to try to get more of those middle round or second to fourth round picks. I think he's going to try to stack up on those if he's going to do anything with those round picks. So I would expect if there's a move up because one of those guys is falling, it's because he's including a fourth round pick with Zach Moss or Epinesa or I don't know, fill in the blank, whatever
bag of footballs.
Sure.
Whatever gets
underdeflated footballs.
Underdeflated. And we got another super chat. This one from Traz. Traz, you've been crushing it in the chat tonight. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the super chat. Traz says, actually, I kind of don't disagree with this. He said the biggest need is a punter. That's kind of fair. Yeah. But then the rest of the comment is, but should we take the best player available as long as it's a corner? And if the value isn't there, trade back. If we're talking first round, y'all answer this first, Kendall, and then go to you. If the corner isn't there of value, that means for me, that means McDuffie, Booth, Stingley, and Sauce are gone. If we just want to play devil's advocate and say those 4, there's some other guys I would still like there at 25, but say those guys are gone. That means to me that a sweet wide receiver fell or a sweet interior offensive lineman fell. And that means the Bills are in play for Jamison Williams, Olave, Zion Johnson. I don't think Linderbaum, but I think that means a top tier guy at another position fell. So I would not trade back. But again, it depends on what we're looking at. Are we talking trade back the Lions want to move from 32 to 25, or the Lions want to move up and they're going to give you their first pick in the second round and then their third round pick or something? I could see that potentially being the case depending on how the board falls. And again, like Kendall said, which was super spot on, Kendall, I had it in my notes, but you beat me to it. Brandon Bean talked about the middle round value in this draft. And because of that, I see them valuing rounds 2, 3, and 4, maybe even going to 5 in terms of picks and
maybe.
everything that they have there.
Yeah, my big prevailing thought on this is you don't want to reach for a position of need because that's how you bust on a player.
There you go.
That's really the law of that's what you should have included in your PowerPoint. Don't draft for positional need. It was too sarcastic to include something like
Correct
that.
that. I didn't want to give an actual real point. I wanted it to be full on like seriousness, but just pure sarcasm. Yeah, that would have been too real of a point.
But yeah, like you didn't mention like Kyler Gordon. Like if Kyler Gordon's on
Correct.
the board and we're at 25, like yes, that's according to TDN right now, like that's reaching on a position of need. But I
Not for
think
me.
there's a lot of people that are okay with Kyler Gordon in the later half of the first round. We've talked about this a lot. The idea that there's usually only like 18 to 20 first round grades, and you're inevitably going to get to like second rounders at the end of the first round. So there's a boiling point, there's a tipping point where you don't want to go ahead and do that and take a position in need just because you need that position. But Kyler Gordon, I don't know if that's that. I think you could go ahead and take Kyler Gordon at 25.
I would at 25, any one of my top 6 corners, granted,
Yeah.
several of them are going to be gone. Give me Stingley, Sauce, McDuffie, Booth, McCreary, or Kyler Gordon. If any one of them are there, I'm completely fine with it. Taylor says hit the like. Everybody should hit the like. We appreciate you guys. But we got a big super chat from Cordaro. Thank you so much, one again, for being here. This is my favorite color of the super chats, not because of the money and the monetary values associated with it. I just
rarely
really like
comes up. It's nice,
and I like this magenta. It's very soothing. Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta go. Victor says Gordon is not a first rounder. I disagree, but we'll come back to that. Cordaro says we will see a 2 tight end set like we did in New England with Gronk and Aaron now that we have OJ Howard to team up with Knox. I was looking for it from Dable since he came from New England. I am very excited for the 12 personnel potential. Kendall, you and I talked about it with that Von Miller episode that really turned into the Von Miller episode, but we also touched on OJ Howard. I love the idea of 12 personnel, especially with how, like I mentioned earlier, teams are playing these 2 high coverages against the Buffalo Bills, right? So what do you want to do to get them out of those 2 high looks? Go with heavier personnel where they have to bring a safety down, or run the ball more effectively where they have to bring a safety down. And what's nice about 12 personnel with OJ Howard is his ability to function as a receiver. So if you get them to bring a safety down, you got mismatch potential. If you get them to go into heavier personnel because say their nickel guy isn't a big nickel guy, and so they sub him out to bring in a third linebacker, now you got OJ Howard or Dawson Knox matched up on a linebacker. When you go play action, you go with these deep drops. I am very excited for the potential of 12 personnel. I think we see an uptick in it this year, not just because of the signing of Howard in a vacuum, but Ken Dorsey has experience with 12 personnel from his time in Carolina. And Mr. Aaron Kromer, the offensive line coach, and his experience as an offensive line coach, but also as an offensive coordinator, he is very much a fan of 12 personnel. And he's going to coach up OJ Howard and Dawson Knox along with that offensive line and their blocking ability. I expect to see more 12 personnel. I'm very excited for it. I don't think it needs to be the staple of this offense, but I think we talk about rock, paper, scissors on defense. 12 personnel is part of the rock, paper, scissors on offense. It's a huge addition. I know I spoke a lot on that. Do you have anything to add on that topic?
My only thing to add is the exciting part about OJ Howard too, not only in the passing threat, as a blocker. He's got all of the athletic traits to become a great blocker. And we know the strides that Knox took as a blocker this year. Now imagine all of those athletic traits that both of those guys have to be great blockers. And then match it with Aaron Kromer.
Wild.
I'm very excited for the multiplicity that this offense, the potential multiplicity that this offense has to offer in 2022.
Good word. And we're going to stick with you and some more good words. Martin Emerson, who you briefly got to touch on before we stopped.
Big tangent.
Yeah, big tangent. Martin Emerson, Mississippi State corner, long, athletic, good size, good frame, an archetypal fit for this Bills secondary. Talk to the people, let them know what's good with Martin Emerson.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with Martin Emerson. He is like your prototypical archetype fit for the Bills and their zone defense. Dude is 6'1", 201, ran a 4.53 40, which is just great for that size. It's the 56th percentile for cornerbacks, but I mean, when you factor in his size, that's perfect.
And he's 6'1", like pushing 6'2", like he's a big corner. So the fact that he's running 4.53 is very fine.
And what I haven't mentioned yet is he's got 33.5-inch arms, which is great for that zone coverage.
Could we put his arms on McCreary's body?
I mean, we could, but
surgery
McCreary would look really weird.
But he'd be a much better corner to some people.
100%. But I mean, aesthetically, that's what matters
care about
most,
the
right?
aesthetics. I care about rings, dog. I care about championships.
So my thing with Martin Emerson is, the size matched with the athleticism is really, really intriguing. And then the archetype fit and the way he could produce in zone. But then what he does on tape and the ability he shows in press man is really intriguing because it offers the scheme versatility that we've been talking about, the rock, paper, scissors stuff on defense. If you offer someone that can press outside wide receivers and give them a tougher time to get off the line of scrimmage, give your safeties a longer chance to get over and cover that area on top of them, it opens up a lot of opportunities for what you want to do in zone and what you could potentially do in man. The only downsides I really see to Emerson's game is slightly below sufficient change of direction skills, but I think that's what's to be expected from someone who's a lankier dude. It's just not easy to be quick and agile when you're long. But even so, I mean, he was in the 70 plus percentile for both of his agility testing. So
I was going to say, I wasn't that, I'll get to a minute, but continue.
No, I mean, it didn't show as a strength of his on tape, but then when I saw him do it at the combine, it definitely quieted some of those concerns for me. But that's like the only real thing I was really upset with. That and maybe like blind spot management. There were some times when he was a little bit negligent to that blind spot and he would allow people to get into it and then just lose them. But that's a coaching thing. That's something that's easily correctable with coaching. So it's not something that's super concerning. But I really like the body of work and I really like the value proposition of finding a guy like that fits in round 3. I think it's very intriguing.
I'm right there with you. He and Cam Taylor-Britt, I'll talk about them when I take my turn here in this segment, but I'll just touch on Emerson now. I thought his change of direction was better for his, again, it's not ideal, but it's better for his size given what I was worried it was going to be. And I'm watching him change direction against Alabama. Like he's changing direction against John Mechie and Jamison Williams and holding his own. And the physicality piece that he adds, like I like the tool that he adds to this defense, the length and the physicality and his ability to, in those 3x1 sets, to put him on the single receiver and just mug the hell out of him. Or in those 3x1 sets, if you're running games where you want to man up the outside receiver in the trips look on the trip side, him up there with that jam, with that length, it's impressive and it's physical. You'll also see that physicality. He'll set the edge. He'll come up and take on a tackle or a guard, not just tight ends. He'll take on pulling linemen and set the edge with a shoulder, with a long arm. He's physical. He's got an attitude about him in a good way. And then you combine that with the technicality that he has, and he has some ability to run. Like there were a couple snaps against Bama where Jamison Williams just runs a straight go route. And Jamison Williams is arguably the fastest player in all of college football. And Emerson, he's not perfectly stride for stride with him, but he's close enough that his length allows him to make a play on the ball. And if you've got somebody who can run with Jamison Williams, I'm very much okay with that. Now, he does have, again, his deficiencies. Like I'd like him to be a little more quick with his feet and have better change of direction, but I think it's sufficient plus, especially when combined with the length and the scheme fit and the versatility that he has and the technique he does. And he's another guy who he has this physical tool set. You shine it up, you polish it, you coach it up, and you watch him potentially grow and do more. So he's mine on day 2. I think him more as like a round 3 guy.
Same.
But I would be very much happy with him. And now let's quickly touch on your day 3 target at corner.
So my day 3 target is a Caleb Evans out of Missouri. He's someone I just recently started doing work on, but I liked his body of work a little bit at the Senior Bowl. It's really tough to gauge Senior Bowl corners because they're just at a disadvantage, but I liked the little things I learned about him there. But specifically on tape and then at the combine, dude tested really well, 6'2", 197, and then he ran a 4.4 640. So it's very similar in essence to Emerson, where he's a big, lanky dude, 32-inch arms, but he also can run fast. Like he can move for that size. So that's very good. And then also he played at Tulsa for 3 years and then transferred to Missouri and had a pretty productive year in the SEC. So that matters, especially when you're transferring from a division, what is that, the AAC to the SEC. That's a very, very, very
That's a
big
huge jump.
in competition. So it was impressive to see him be productive there. But he's someone that is also very productive as a press corner. He wasn't someone that played a ton of zone. So that's something that's more of a projection and based on his archetype and frame more than his actual body of work from what the tape suggests. He did a lot of press man or like bailing out in zone kind of stuff where you're not really getting a lot of his like true zone eyes because he's just bailing. Like he's got all of his momentum bailing back to the end zone without being able to like truly break on the ball because all of his momentum's going backwards. So it was tough to read his zone principles, but he's got the traits to play zone, and that's encouraging to me. I liked his ball skills a lot, which was encouraging, especially with 32-inch arms and the length that he presents. That's always encouraging, having ball skills with length. And then his ability in run support and making open field tackles. I mean, we know that's a huge thing for the Bills and their corners. He was like, I don't have the number. I wish I had the number, but I think he was top 10 in terms of 2022 draft class corners in missed tackle rate. He was like, well, lowest 10, I guess. So that was very that was very encouraging to see a cornerback with a low missed tackle rate.
Nice poll. I like your list a lot. And I like how you went for, again, like we like to talk about here, scheme fit, skill sets, because you can't just be like, oh, this guy. And it's like, dude, he doesn't do any of the things that this defense is going to do either. They're not going to take him. So stop wasting time on him. Solid picks overall. I spoke about my day 2 guy, who was Emerson, along with yours. I'm going to go back to my priority number 1 guy. So in my world of what I'm thinking right now, at 25, I think Stingley's gone. I think Sauce is gone. I think Booth is gone. I think there's a chance, I think like a 30% chance that either Booth or McDuffie fall to 25. I think so. It's not tremendous, but 30% chance, not awful, right? But I think you have pretty good odds that McDuffie, Booth, Stingley, Sauce are gone at pick 25. So for me in this instance, priority 1 for me is a corner, and my target in round 1 came down to either Kyler Gordon or Roger McCreary. And I really enjoy both of them. I like their tape so much, and they offer different skill sets, but both of those skill sets fit with what the Bills are doing. I'm going to stay on the train that I've been on since the week of the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I was going to say, you cannot leave this hill.
Not going away. I will die on this hill. Roger McCreary from Auburn. I know people will say he's got short arms. I know people will say that he played a ton of man and he can't function in zone, or we don't know. And I'd love if he had longer arms. I think it'd be fantastic. And I'll make this statement. If he has longer arms, he's in the conversation. He's easily in the top 3 corners in this class.
Yes.
If he has longer arms.
Yes.
What's nice for him is, despite the short arm length, and this is why I'm not too concerned, that's funny what Jason said, anthill. That's good. Funny. That's good. Well done, Jason. His footwork, his fluidity in his hips, his hand technique, his intelligence, his awareness, his ability to stay in phase and mirror almost any receiver he comes across. Watching the first 2 games I watched for him, and I've watched 5. The first 2 games I watched for him were against Alabama, when he covered Williams, and then Williams went out of the game and he covered Mechie. And people will also say, oh, he got burned by Mechie in overtime. One play. Stefon Diggs burned Marshawn Lattimore. Is Marshawn Lattimore a horrible corner? Not in the least. But every dude loses reps now and again. But watching him run stride for stride with Jameson Williams, and it's not a Martin Emerson stride where it's like close. He's right there in lockstep with the fastest receiver. Hip pocket, bang. And it's because of his footwork, his ability to understand leverage. Ooh, nice there from G-Long saying Greg Cosell called McCreary a Trey clone. Yeah, a lot of people's comps for Roger McCreary is Tre'Davious White. His polish and technique is so legit. And I'm not concerned about the arm length because of everything he does technically. His ability to understand leverage, his ability to consistently maintain that leverage underneath routes, intermediate routes, vertical routes, different points in the route stem, combined with his feet and his fluidity and his athleticism. It's all tremendous. And then the man coverage, zone coverage first part, I've seen enough of him covering in zone. He understands how to function in it. Now, did he live in that world as much as we'd like him to? No. Can he live in that world? Yes. Is it a huge sample size to make you think he's going to nail it? I don't think so. But you're looking for, you talked about it last night with what we did for Chad Muma with the tape that we had because we didn't have a lot, right? You trait hunt and you look and you think like, okay, what is he doing? Is he exhibiting traits or a level of functional intelligence to make you think that he can progress and translate that game to the NFL level? And he does. He's got several zone snaps against Penn State where you watch him pass off receivers deep in his zone, and then you'll see him read and sink and drop to the deep over or the underneath route or the backside dig. He can function in that zone world. And again, also what's nice about his game here, the Bills play zone, but they play a ton of pattern match zone, which basically functions like man. They also play single high cover 1, which is a true man coverage set. They also have man looks against 3x1s and 4 strong formations and spread concepts. So you need someone who can function in man. I still think he can function in zone. I think he's the best man coverage corner in this draft.
Yes.
Maybe on a healthy day, maybe behind Derek Stingley, who's my corner 1, and I think is phenomenal, all things considered. Roger McCreary, I think, is a stud. And the tape. And I know Spin said it multiple times. He said McCreary said he doesn't know zone because he wasn't asked to play it, but he did play it. Again, it wasn't a ton. Like, was he predominantly a man corner? Yes, but he played zone. Now, there's different levels to zone and pattern matching, coverage types, and all that stuff, but he's got a functional intelligence on the field that I think he'll be able to translate to the NFL. And I think it would be fantastic. I like him. And again, Trent McDuffie, who Bills Mafia seems to have gotten over his short arms in a hurry and would love him to fall. McDuffie's arms are a little longer than McCreary's. I would love McDuffie as well, but I'm right there with corner. And again, I've got 6 corners who I'd be fine with at 25. Stingley, Sauce, Booth, McDuffie, McCreary, and Kyler Gordon. My target on day 2 is Martin Emerson. We spoke about him. My target on day 3, Kendall's somebody who Eric and I spoke a little bit about in our film room DM, Mr. Damari Mathis.
I haven't watched him yet. I want to hear what you guys think about it.
He's real fun. And I feel like people are going to be like, dude, another guy from Pitt? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, but has it been bad yet?
No,
has it not worked out yet?
And what's nice is his recovery speed and his athleticism and his aggression and his tackling. And, from a metric standpoint, he ran a 4.3940. He has a 9.7 RAS score. He's got 31.8 inch arms, so that way people won't freak out about his arms. But what's nice is you see on tape, you see the speed. The first thing that put him on my radar was he bites on a slant and go. He bites hard. He bites hard to the point where he comes up on the slant that when the receiver pops it back out on the go, he's completely behind him. And Mathis speed turns. Dude has a good 4 or 5 yard step on Mathis. Mathis speed turns and beats him to the marker, recovers, and gets the pass breakup. And it's unreal. The angle that he takes to the ball, the athleticism to spin in that speed turn, and then the quick trigger to bang, beat that guy to the spot. I first saw that and I was like, oh, what the hell is this? And then started to go down the rabbit hole a little bit on him. And you just see the physicality. He makes big plays. Now, he needs polish in his technique, as a lot of these corners do and guys do for this type of thing. But you see him flash with that athleticism, with that technique, with that ability time and time again, over and over again. And it's against honestly, a good competition, a good amount of competition in the ACC that he came up against. And he was somebody who functioned well in 2020. Then he came back in 2021 and put in some good work, put together some good tape. He's a guy who I see, living in that day 3 world. And you combine, again, we made the joke about these Pitt defensive backs. The scheme that Pitt plays is very translatable to what the Buffalo Bills do. It's almost like it's a farm system for the Buffalo Bills, whether it's safety, whether it's corner. That Narduzzi defense just really works with the Buffalo Bills from a mental standpoint and a physical trait standpoint. And he's got some physical measurables combined with the mental game and the zone eyes, but he's got more speed and athleticism to him. He's another one who late you can coach up those traits. You have a solid foundation, and then you combine that with his mental, comfortability level in this type of scheme and defense. I think he's somebody who you could target late because, man, he flashes a lot, and somebody that you refine and you polish a little bit and he's good to go.
I have one question for you about him because I literally have done nothing. Why does TDN have him listed as a safety?
I don't know.
You don't know? He didn't do that much, or at least on the tape that you saw?
What I saw with him was all corner reps. I mean,
Is there anything that worries you to the point where you're like, obviously he has the athleticism where he could go back and play safety, and I've seen a lot of stuff about him in run support and being able to tackle.
He's a bullet.
That kind of translates well to being able to play safety. So is it kind of one of those things where it's like he's a day 3 guy where if he doesn't pan out at corner, if there are those overwhelming concerns, he's just a safety at the end of the day? Is that, you think, why TDN has him at safety?
I think that could be the reason. Not that I'm in their brain trust or
right.
anything like that.
I'm curious what you thought. Yeah.
I think you could see it because when he struggles, it's technique based and it's just him getting too ahead of himself and going for like 2-hand jams and just losing his feet and just not being he has the recovery speed to get back in phase, but he can put himself out of phase
too
very
easily
quickly.
sometimes.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And when you're in the NFL, everybody's big and fast, like we like to talk about. So it's not easy to just win with your recovery speed like you did in college, where it's like, I can take that risk because I can recover with my athleticism and speed. That doesn't work all the time in the NFL. Actually, it doesn't work a lot. Like, you have to have that technique. You have to have that head on your shoulders. But, you know, we've always heard a lot of good professional type things from defenders that come from that pit system. So he strikes me as a guy who you can clean up those things and allow him to function in that world. But the idea of safety for me is intriguing because when he comes up and makes tackles, he's a bullet. Whether it's in the hole, whether it's outside, he's very aggressive. He's got those hits where he's got like a Lonnie Taylor type hits on film where you're like, who was that? Like, it's just pop. Like, it might not be a perfect wrap, but he'll come in and just bang, shoulder somebody and then kind of like strut around like, yeah, like I did that. Like, it's oof. Yeah, he's got some physicality to him.
He sounds like a guy that intrigues me as like the second end of the double dip at cornerback, because if it doesn't work out at corner, you got yourself a safety.
Why not? And you could do a lot worse than taking a really traitsy guy and hoping you can mold him and do some things with him. And doing some things with our second priority here as we start to move along on this show. So, Kendall, we talked about it last night in the DM. Our priority 2 and 3, we struggled a little bit. We went back and forth trying to rank things and figure out what they are. What's your priority number 2 and your targets on each day?
My priority number 2 is wide receiver. It was really tough to narrow this down, but I'm going with wide receiver because of the uncertainty for the future behind Diggs and Davis, not because of my lack of confidence in Crowder or McKenzie for this year, but what is 2023 going to be? And that's really the biggest part of this, because if you do draft a guy in round 1 or round 2 at the wide receiver position, I don't think there's any reason that they couldn't beat out Jamison Crowder or Isaiah McKenzie for more snaps in the slot or just wherever, because everyone in this wide receiver group, really outside of Crowder and McKenzie, everyone can play slot or outside. So that's why it landed at number 2 for me. It was just that combination of addressing the now and the future. And there's a lot of guys, man. Wide receiver is always deep and it's always intriguing. And like we've talked about many times before, you got to keep that fastball. So my number 1, I guess my number 1 priority at the number 2 priority position, wide receiver, it's Jahan Dotson.
Okay.
I think he's right there at the cross section of realism. I think he'll be there at 25. I don't see a team taking a chance on him before 25. Hell, if Olave drops, like, I'll take Olave, but I really don't think Olave is going to be there at 25. So I'm taking Dotson at 25. I think that makes the most sense in terms of realism. For me, he's got, hands down, I didn't mean to do that, the best hands in the draft. And I don't think it's even that close.
And Ronald in the chat literally said it when you said, he said, man has the hands.
He's so confident at the catch point. And people see the Ohio State one-handed catch And then there's just so much more than that. Like that one-handed catch is sick, but like there is so much more than that. And in our film room a few weeks back, I showed the one-handed catch he had against Auburn, where it shows that body control with the one-handed catch too. So it's a
Foolish.
lot when it comes to his confidence at the catch point. But beyond that, he is such a deceptive and tactical route runner.
Mhm.
Like he is so polished in regards to how he sets up his routes, but also how he understands how to get open in zone and optimize that passing window for his quarterback. That's a huge point for, I mean, the defenses that the Bills
Yes.
go up against.
And that's part of the reason. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I got
Oh,
excited.
go for
Like
it.
that's part of the reason what gave me so much confidence in McCreary, watching him go one-on-one with Dotson over and over again, and to a
Right.
decent, like, I don't even want to put down Dotson. He locked him up for a heavy portion of that game, and I was like, here's this dude who I value as an athlete and I value as a route runner and a first-round talent. And Roger McCreary is just locking him up over and over. I was like, oh man. And like, so it elevated McCreary to me because I valued Jahan Dotson so much
Mhm.
in how he plays receiver.
Yeah, 100%. And Charles comes in and says that Dotson plays far above his weight class. And
Mm,
he's, what is it, like 5'10, 178, I think, something like that. And you wouldn't think it when you watch him.
no,
You
but he's
really
big.
wouldn't. He doesn't play like he's some small dude afraid of contact or anything like that. It's not like he goes ahead and embraces contact and he's running through people or anything
But
like
he
that.
extends at the catch point like he has no fear if he's going to get walloped. He goes full extension and doesn't care if he's getting hit in the ribs, collarbone, face, whatever. He goes full tilt to get that ball.
Exactly. So I really love his holistic skill set. My one concern with him is it's so weird. It's his agility and his creativity with the ball in his hands because he shows agility when he's running routes. Like he's a very crisp route runner, and you can see his stop and start ability and the way he can sharply turn his routes and not necessarily round them, but cut them off and make them sharp angles. Like he has all of that, but for whatever reason, when he gets the ball in his hands, he struggles to kind of stop on a dime and make people miss. He's just not all that creative when he gets the ball in his hands. And that's definitely something that is a little bit concerning for a guy that's 5'10, 178. You'd like him to be a rack king, but
Yeah.
he's got the speed to do it. You know, like if he has space in front of him, like he could go ahead and carve out a touchdown if he's not asked to make people miss, so to speak. If he's just asked to destroy pursuit angles, he can do that. But the actual creativity with the ball in his hands leaves a little bit left to be desired, at least for me. But everything other than that, I love the player, and that shouldn't be a reason to take a player off your board. So yeah, Jahan Dotson at 25, I'm all for it, depending on the way the board falls.
Yes, good call with how the board falls, and I agree. I think Dotson has the best hands in this class. We broke him down in the film room. We've talked about him on the show. I love how he extends the catch point. I like his route running. I think he's somebody who is just going to get better the more he gets coached up and gets
Mm.
in the NFL. Like he already possesses a lot of nuance combined with athleticism in his game. He's got functional traits and a skill set combined with nuance and technicality. Like I think he's really underrated in this class, but maybe not so anymore. People are like, my initial thought was him was like, oh my God, I'd love to get him at 57. And now he's become
Yeah,
almost
right.
like a first round lock for a lot of people. So people are starting to catch up with Dotson a little bit. But yeah, I second your notions there as well. He's flat. He flashed during the regular season the past 2 years for me. And then watching the tape really confirmed a lot of the technical pieces that you want to see from someone like that. So good call there. And now let's touch on your day 2 and day 3 wide receiver targets.
So day two is really tough because I want to pick Sky Moore, but I legitimately don't know if Sky Moore will be there at 57. Like
Okay.
there's so much buzz around Sky Moore that I don't know. But
Okay.
that's my gut. That's what I would love
He's my
on.
day 2 target.
Lovely. There we go. There we go. We're saving some time by talking about Sky Moore then. So Sky Moore. Thing with Sky Moore, we talked about it in the film. It's funny, two for two now, film room wide receivers, but
Crazy.
we like them.
Hmm.
So the thing with Sky Moore is he had a limited route tree because of the offense he was in. So many RPOs at Western Michigan. A lot of just, hey, you're running a hitch route and then you're blocking.
Glance
So
RPO, glance route,
yeah,
glance route,
every
glance route.
single time, every single time. But when he was asked to run routes, dude was polished. And he has only played 2 years at the position And to be that polished for 2 years at the position is truly impressive. So I love the way he runs routes. I love his competitive energy. He's got 10-inch hands, which is wild. Like he's got really, really strong hands at the
Kenny
catch
Pickett
point.
wishes he had those
Yeah,
hands.
I know, right? Just swap those two. It's honestly what it should be. He's 5'9", 195, but he's got 10-inch hands. So it's kind of wild. He's got 31-inch arms too. Ran a 4.4 140. Super fast guy. Plays like it too. He can run away from people. He can make people miss too. He's a little bit more creative with the ball in his hands than Jahan Dotson is. But I love his ability to separate at all levels of the route. Like, dude has a really complete release package with the way he's sudden with his footwork at the line of scrimmage, and then what he can do with the sharpness and crispness of his routes at the middle portion. And then if he's going deep, he's got the speed to separate on those 9 routes. So it's very holistic package when it comes to someone who played against poor competition, and he's been at that position for 2 years. So it's a very intriguing guy. I wonder if he'll even make it to 57 because of all the buzz around him right now. I think a lot of people are concerned that he might just be a slot guy, but his release package to me tells me that he could function on the outside just because of how comfortable he is with his release package already, being, as I've said, like 5 times now, 2 years into the position.
As expected, based on the fact that I had him as my day 2 target, I second that notion. I really liked the film that I watched on him in preparation for the film room. And then we did that episode, and it really just, it connected a lot of dots for me, a lot of Dotsons for me, pun intended. You just see him from a physical standpoint, like you see him run these stutter goes, and you see the sink in his hips and his ability to go from like 10% speed to 100 in like 2-3
Yeah,
steps.
that pace. I failed to mention that he's really good with that pace, like slowing it down, speeding it up, whatever he wants to do.
He understands pacing in his routes. He's got different gears. He's got different levels. He's not just like, well, I only run one speed. It's either nothing or 100%. No, he can go 25 to 50 to 75, 100. He's got that pacing, which is really nice to see. Like you mentioned, he's not very experienced in his receiver career in total, but also from like a route tree perspective, given what Western Michigan's offense does. So he's someone who I really like the idea of taking him on day 2 for the Bills, because you've got Jamison Crowder this year. You've got Isaiah McKenzie. You've got Gabriel Davis. By the time you need Sky Moore to like really, really deliver, it's like a year or 2 down the road when he's continued to simmer and add polish to his game from the coaching he's going to get. But yeah, like when you do see him run, like when he gets those limited opportunities to run like actual route tree routes, you see some of that snap, you see the precision. He understands leverage, and he's got the speed and the functional athleticism to execute. He's got good hands. He's athletic at the catch point. He competes. He's also a good run blocker. He's that type of guy who because he's thicker as a shorter guy, he can lay the wood on safeties, outside linebackers, and he's a very willing blocker. And you have to be when you run as many RPOs or you're a run heavy offense. Like it is like, he's just got burst. You watch him beat guys vertical. You watch him beat them in the short to intermediate. He can win in a variety of ways. And I think his ceiling is really high in the league because he hasn't really gotten that coaching up at the position to really play wide receiver. So if he does, and you connect it with what he's already done in this limited amount of time, combined with his skill set, right? I think he's somebody who could be really intriguing. And especially given the fact that Cole Beasley's gone, you're looking for somebody who can fit into that slot world. Sky Moore. You want somebody who's very comfortable in an offense that runs a lot of RPOs. Sky Moore, like
he's done it.
There you go,
95% of the time.
And the Bills love RPOs, and that's what Josh Allen. That Cole Beasley connection was very important overall, but also in those RPO looks, because Beasley understood leverage and coverage and was so in sync with Josh in those looks. You add somebody who's comfortable in that world, I think it's really nice. Honestly though, there's a ton of day 2 guys. Like I went through like 70, but I settled on Sky because I've liked him really since the combine. And then I liked him even more once I dove into the tape. Now let's give us your day 3 target quickly, and then I'll do my day 1 and my day 3.
I struggled with day 3 because I wanted to pick Kyle Phillips because I know he's slot only, and I thought, hey, maybe he'll drop into the 4th round just because he's
Mm,
a slot only guy. But I wasn't too comfortable with that because I feel like he probably will be drafted in the 3rd round. So I went with Alec Pierce. I think
so
Alec
did I.
Pierce. Oh my God! Wow, we're really overlapping tonight, folks. I really like Alec Pierce though. Dude is very well rounded for this size. Like
Mm,
that's the thing with me. When you find someone that's 6'3", 211 pounds, but he can do everything. That's that's just rare. That's rare stuff. That's DK Metcalf type stuff. Like you don't have that type of size and do everything the way you can and not be rare. That's unicorn
mm,
type stuff. So I really like his body of work. He's a really solid route runner for his size. It's probably the only thing of his game that needs work. It's his route running. But
mm.
even then, it's still good. Like it's
Yes, it is.
sufficient. It's not like an area where you're like, oh, he won't be able to separate at the next level. Like he still has some nuance to his route running. He
Mhm.
knew how to get open. And furthermore, Cincinnati was probably one of the most pro style offenses in college football last year. So he's running
Yeah.
pro concepts in terms of his route tree. It was a very full route tree, and he aligned everywhere. They asked him to play pseudo tight end where they reduced him down and in a short in motion, and he would
Mhm.
essentially be like connected to the line of scrimmage, and he would crack block someone, allowing Jerome Ford to bust
Yeah.
off a run, all sorts of stuff.
Good
He
release
would
package from all those different alignments as well.
Exactly. Great release package, really good hand usage, like chopping
Mhm.
hands to make sure his chest plate is clean. Keeping that chest plate clean so he can keep that momentum through the stem of his route. All of that stuff is great. And then his contested catches. Like
Mm.
former volleyball player, and it shows.
Yeah.
He jumped 40 inches at the vertical, 40 and a half inches at the vertical. That's the 97th percentile for wide receivers. And it shows on tape, man. He goes up there and gets the ball at its highest point. And I mean, those catches are tough to make, but I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back and find the numbers, but he was up there in terms of contested catch rate,
Mm.
like really being successful in those contested catch scenarios. And they really trusted him in those scenarios. I mean, Desmond Ritter, he really trusted him in any scenario where he was throwing the ball up to him to go ahead and get it. He didn't think twice. He didn't view it as a 50-50. He viewed it as we got a 75% chance of hauling this ball in and getting, 30
Mm.
plus yards on this play. So I really like the whole body of work with Alec Pierce, just super athletic dude at his size. He's 9.81 RAS score at
Oh,
6'3", 211. Just
well,
wild stuff. Wild
freak.
athlete. Yeah.
Yeah, he so and it's not a spoiler because I guess it's my turn now. My priority 2 was wide receiver. And just to briefly touch on it, Jameson Crowder's on a 1-year deal. McKenzie's on a 2-year. As much as everybody loves Isaiah McKenzie, I don't know if he's the full answer for you at wide receiver 3. OJ Howard is a nice piece. He's on a 1-year deal. We don't know what the future of Gabriel Davis is from a contract standpoint, right? And you got to keep your fastball. You have to keep
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen insulated with weapons. You got to keep bullets in the clip. You got to keep your arsenal fully stocked and ready to go for Josh. And that's why receiver. Plus, this class is so deep.
Yes.
Like I think there is going to be a receiver taken in the first 4 rounds, and honestly, I think there should be. I think that's where a lot of the value is. You can get
I
a
agree.
day 2, maybe even a day 3 receiver who can give you meaningful snaps in 2022, and then
Mm-hmm.
let alone what you get beyond. I'll stick with my day 3 target just because it's the same guy. I like Alec Pierce. I thought he showed nuance in his route running, like you talked about his footwork, his understanding of when to break, his ability to
Mm-hmm.
separate at different points in the route stem, and yeah, his hand clearage and uses, whether it's at the release, whether it's later in the route stem and staying clean. He's got, and then his ability to go get the football, like you mentioned, that volleyball background. It's similar to Drake London's basketball background, where you
Right.
just see the balls in the air and they're like, that's my ball. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if there's one guy or two. They go up, they use that length, they use those hands, snatch it out of the air. And Pierce was like a big play threat. Like he's fast
Oh yeah.
for how big he is. Like he's very much in that toolsy, freakish kind of mold, and he'd coach
Mm-hmm.
him up. And what's also nice too is despite the fact that he's bigger and he's got length, he's got long legs, long arms, but he's not stiff. He's
Mm-mm.
still got some bend to him. He's got some
Mhm.
smoothness. You can see it when he runs routes. Like, he has the ability to sink. Like, he's not stiff. He's not heavy or cement footed.
Yeah.
And I see, again, my targets for here are based on, I think the Bills take a receiver in the first 4 rounds. I think Alec Pierce is a 4th round receiver. I think he goes in that round. So was like why he was my ideal day 3 target. I'm not going to name somebody in round 5 or 6 or 7. You also put, I
Right.
know a lot of people are clamoring for like Velus Jones. You could throw his
Right.
name in there. I just think the receiver upside for Pierce is higher
I
than what
agree.
Jones is.
I agree.
But yeah, he was my day 3 target. We share the same day 2 target in Sky Moore. My day 1 target, I don't think this is cheating because I think there's a chance he could be there. I'm going to go with Jameson Williams. I think the board, in a weird way, there's so much pick your flavor with these receivers. I don't know how the board's going to shake out, but I'm very confident that Garrett Wilson and Drake London are going to be gone. Then I think Olave is gone. And then the 4th receiver, it's crazy. I think Dotson has crept up into the 4th receiver conversation. And
You think it's
now
the injury? You think it's because of the injury?
I think it's a combination of the tape and the technicality that Dotson has combined with the injury. Like, maybe people are like, yeah, but especially for these teams that really want to double dip or go with these receivers, they want answers now.
Yeah.
Like, if you're, granted the Chiefs come after the Bills, but if you're the Chiefs or you're the Green Bay Packers or even the Eagles, even though they've traded a pick now, you want somebody who's ready to come in and make an impact
Right.
now.
Yep.
You don't want to take the chance of maybe his knee or, well, he's going to be out for September or this and that. I think it's, somewhere around a 50-50 shot, but I think the Bills have a chance at Jameson Williams. And
Mhm.
he's my wide receiver 4. He's not my 1, like everybody, like a lot of Bills fans have him for themselves, but I think his fit is crazy. I talked about it earlier, 2 high coverages. He's got the ability to take the top off the defense, whether he's going up the sideline and around corners or he's running posts and splitting safeties. He just changes the game in a huge way. And I don't love his route running. I would like to see more snap and precision from him, but I think he does have some of that ability. I think he needs to get coached up. I think a lot of it is just similar to Sky Moore, the system that he was in at Bama. They were just like, yo, bro, just go run deep overs.
Yeah.
Just go run benders.
Threat
And
the
drags.
defense.
That's it. Like, and every once in a while he'd run a hitch or a stop, but majority of his routes were just, yo, just go be fast. And that's it. But when he did run some of those routes, you saw some things. I didn't see a ton that I loved, but I saw enough to make me feel confident. And even if it's not, that speed is real. That vertical threat is real. Putting that in the Bills offense would be absolutely huge. So he is again, it's all based on realism. Like, it also in that world, right? If I wanted to go a little more unrealistic, I put Olave into there, but I think Olave is gone.
Yeah.
I think London, Olave, and Wilson are hands down gone before 25. And then, depending on how people feel or what's going on, Dotson, Williams, somewhere around there at pick 25. I think Dotson is more realistic than Williams, but I knew you were going to pick Dotson, so I just wanted to speak about someone else. And yeah, I think I said it on Twitter today, Jameson Williams' ability to take the top off the defense, I don't think he's the best receiver in this class, but I think he's the most dangerous chess piece at wide receiver because of the option he gives offenses. For instance, if you add him to the Buffalo Bills offense, good Lord. What happens if you add him to the Chargers offense? Good Lord. The ability to take the top off with what they can do underneath, very similar. Or if you add him to the Chiefs offense, if the Chiefs are able to be like, well, we lost Tyreek Hill and we replaced him with Jameson Williams, oh boy. I don't think he's the best receiver, but I think he's the most dangerous chess piece in this draft at wide receiver because of the nature of today's NFL and his skill set and what it allows you to do as an offense. And now we move to another difficult one. Priority number 3, which I wrestled with. I know you wrestled with. Yes. I wrote down, I think we know what our top 4 are, and we struggled with putting the top 3. There's a part of me. So I did all 4, and there's a part of me that was like, whatever he says for 3, I'll just pick the opposite, but I'm staying true to my gut. So
Good. Do that.
Regardless of what you do, I know what my priority 3 is, but go ahead. What's your priority 3?
Yeah, don't cheat like I do in film room. And I'm not
so much.
I'm not doing it tonight. I'm not cheating tonight. I'm picking one. Priority 3 is interior offensive line. Okay. I really wanted to pick running back, but I used the word, it's want. For me, like, it's not a need. it's more of a want. Like there is some need there because it does create, different dimensions to this offense, but I don't think that's something this offense needs. It's something I want this offense to do. So that's why it falls at priority number 4 for me. Hell, if the Bills take a running back in round 1, I'll wrap my head around it. But
some people wouldn't.
Yeah, some people wouldn't, but I'll wrap my head around it. To each their own. I'm going with interior offensive line. And the
Okay.
reason with this is I'm not convinced with Ryan Bates yet just because of the small sample size. I love what he offered last year. I thought the spark of athleticism that he offered was exactly what this offensive line needed. It lacked that athleticism and that just little hair more of athleticism really showed a lot in what he could do in pin and pull situations, what he could do in zone, and then just the strength at the point of attack as well. So I really liked what Ryan Bates did, but it's a small sample size, so I don't want to depend on that too much. And then furthermore, Roger Saffold is only here for 1 year, or at least we imagine he'll only be here for 1 year. So this is still a need for this team. Interior offense or the guard position is still a need for this team. It needs to be addressed in a way for now, maybe now, but definitely for the future. So that's why it falls down as my first priority. I struggled with picking the first player because I want to pick Zion Johnson.
I struggle with the same thing.
I don't know if Zion Johnson's going to be there anymore. I really, really don't. But I'm going to talk about him because I'm hoping he is. And I think a team could take Kenyon Green before him. I think a team should take Tyler Linderbaum before him. But people don't value centers. So maybe Tyler Linderbaum falls. But either way, I'm going to talk about Zion Johnson. We talked about him in the film room early on. But I really love his game. Really good pass and run blocker. Great body control, good athleticism, great athleticism, honestly. And the only area that I worry about his game is his hand usage, his hand placement specifically. He's active with his hands, but he's got to hit that first punch, and he doesn't do it all that often. But what's really encouraging is the fact that he can win without proper hand usage. It's what I talk about with Greg Rousseau. Greg Rousseau won in college without proper technique. That's really encouraging because you coach up that technique, sky's the limit. That's where potential comes in. So that's what I'm thinking with Zion Johnson. Just about every area of his game is technically sound, but sometimes that punch, it's not always where you want it to be. It's a little high. It's a little wide. He's getting grabby. He's reaching around, whatever it may be. But even
still winning
with that, he's still winning his reps. So that's what's scary about him. You clean that up and you got a really polished first round guard. So man, if he's at 25, I'm going to have a tough time passing on him.
He's in that boat with me for guard, not as much as Elijah Vera Tucker, but last year I was like, if Elijah Vera Tucker falls, I don't care who's on the board. I want Elijah Vera Tucker. I was very much in like my dream scenario for falling to the Bills in the first round last year was Greg Newsome or Elijah Vera Tucker. Like that's
both were snagged.
Yes, and both got snagged. And Zion's up there. We did him in the film room. I have interior offensive line is my 3, but I have a feeling our players are going to be very similar. So I'm going to pivot and I'll do running back just so we have some variety.
Damn.
But I will piggyback on each of your things. Athleticism, explosion, technique. What's also an interesting point is Zion Johnson's very much in that mold of kind of like new age guards that have to be stout enough to handle thicker interior guys, but they also have to be athletic enough to handle the DeForest Buckners of the world.
Great point.
You have pass rush from the interior, and you have to do that in today's NFL. And I think he's very much in that mold. His one of his mock draftable comps is Ali Marpet, who is a guard built for today's NFL, and also Joe Tooney, which again, one of the best guards and built for today's NFL. So I like him. Nice block. I was just about to do that. I have him right up there. I've liked him since the Senior Bowl, since watching him go up against Travis Jones over and over, and it looked like Godzilla versus King Kong, just two monsters, blow for blow, heavyweight fight, left and right. And yeah, everything you said, like I like the athleticism. I like his hand usage. I watched a film breakdown with him. Oh, I forget who it was with, but you're just watching him and listening to him break down what he's doing on his play. And he's so smart and he's so
Yes.
savvy. And he's like, well, here's what I was supposed to do on this play, but it didn't work out. So I did this with my feet instead. And then I used my right arm to latch and I did this. And I took my outside arm and I did this because I knew I had to do that. Like just his ability to break it down. Like I really liked his intelligence. And it makes sense when you see the way that he plays, because when you win, when you're not perfect, that's because of your ability to understand what's going on, your ability to process, your ability to adapt and adjust in the moment. And what I also think why interior offensive lineman is a priority for me, like you said, I would like Bates to be the guy, but we technically don't
Same.
know. We don't have that sample size. And even if he is, awesome. Who's the left guard next year?
Exactly.
Like, is Saffold coming back? And what if Saffold, I don't know, what if he hits a wall this year and he's terrible, and by week 3 we're like, oh God, it didn't work out, or it does work out, but he's only on a 1-year deal, or what if he and Bates doesn't work out? All these things. I think also people forget Josh Allen was the second most pressured quarterback in the NFL last year, and people will point and be like, yeah, but once Bates came in, everything got solidified. Ryan Bates, when he came in from week 16 through the divisional round, Josh Allen was the 5th most pressured quarterback in the NFL. And I'm not saying that's all on Ryan Bates. I'm not saying he didn't make a
part of
difference
it.
because
Piece
he
of
did.
puzzle.
But this offensive line, we don't talk about it as much as a weakness. I'm not saying it is, but we don't talk about the offensive line's deficiencies because we don't see the sacks against Josh Allen. But the reason we don't see the sacks against Josh Allen is because of Josh Allen. His pocket manipulation, his athleticism, his ability to evade. He's the reason you don't see more negative plays. And just like we talk about, you have to make sure you keep your fastball. We talk about it from a weapons perspective. You also have to do that from an offensive line perspective. Josh can't get to the weapons if he doesn't have time. If he feels skittish and he doesn't feel safe, that ain't good. So that's why interior offensive line is my priority 3. I'll touch on running back briefly when you're done, just again to play devil's advocate, because I know a lot of people in here want to hear about running back as well from the comments. But I would love if Zion's there at 25 and the Bills went Zion instead of if the Bills, this is how much I like Zion and think interior offensive line is a need. If Zion was there and they took him instead of McDuffie, I wouldn't be distraught.
Right. It makes enough sense. Yeah, it's still a need. We're talking about it in the top 3 of priority needs. It's still a need. So if that's BPA for Bean, I'm fine with it. I'll wrap my head around it.
There you go. And now we move on to guard is tricky because even with I had Kenyon Green, if I put Kenyon Green as my day 1 target and I put Zion as my day 2, because I think, I don't know, maybe he falls to 40 and the Bills try and trade up or do some kind of something. Because the guard market is weird. You have
It's always weird.
It's every single year. It's the interior offensive line market is weird. So it was tough to rank them. So I'm interested to see who you have as your day 2 and day 3 interior offensive line guys.
My day 2 is Dylan Parham. I really like Dylan Parham from Memphis. I love his athleticism and
I knew you were going to do that after your last mock draft that I saw. I knew you were going to go Parham. Well done.
I love Parham. The fact that he keeps falling to 57 makes me keep wrapping my head around it. But I think he fits this offense perfectly, especially the Aaron Kromer of this offense and where we want to go with the zone running stuff. How athletic he is and how fluid he is in the run game. It's going to be great for if we do get a running back that can actually run outside zone.
Right.
Pairing Dylan Parham with a running back that can run outside zone is just really something I'd be looking forward to. He's very fluid, great footwork, doesn't get too wide in his anchor. He does struggle sometimes with his anchor because he could use a little bit more strength at the point of attack, but I think he's got a great body of work, got great range. If he's a puller, he can go out and get there. If he's climbing to the second level, he's fast enough to go and get there. He's got good aiming points on those linebackers at the second level. Good hand use, good sustain and grip strength. That's definitely a good thing that you want from offensive linemen.
Point. I love his grip strength.
His processing, and what's the last point I wanted to get to? The fact that he could be Morse's replacement at center. If the day comes, he's someone that could reduce down and play center.
Which we also didn't mention about Zion. He got a lot of work at center at the Senior Bowl, and you could see that potentially in a pinch as well.
But it's not something I'm as confident in with Zion because he was just asked to do it on a whim at the Senior Bowl.
They wanted to just see how he could live in that world for the sake of the Senior Bowl.
But Parham's actually done it in games, so that's why it's I think day 1 he could contribute at guard for the Bills, and if the day comes where the Bills move on from Morse, you could slide Parham back to center and you wouldn't really skip a beat. I especially with the way he would progress by that point, because this is probably
Mhm.
like 2-3 years down the road. So yeah, I really like the body of work that he has. Very well-rounded game. Really, the only thing I worry about is his strength at the point of attack. He could get a little bit stronger there and be a little bit better at his anchor. But he's exactly like you said. He's got the reactive athleticism to mirror and match those interior defensive linemen
Mhm.
like DeForest Buckner. But he's also got sufficient plus strength to deal with those heavier set guys. So I really like Dylan Parham from Memphis.
As I've said a lot tonight, I second your notions. I know he's your boy. I don't even want to ruin your dissertation on him. He's somebody who flashed for me when I started looking at the linemen coming out. And I was like, okay, I'll take a peek. And then I always like look to see people who I respect. My first process is to see like their initial thoughts and things on them. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And I put that in the back of my mind and then watch the tape for myself. And it was nice to see the things that I heard about him were real. It wasn't just
Mhm.
smoke being blown. And I was like, oh, and it wasn't stuff that like, well, I'm 3 games in and I guess I see it. I was like 1 game in, second drive in, and I was like, oh, there it is.
Yep.
And again, if you can get somebody like that at 57 who's built for today's NFL, who has that functionality, who has that depth piece, which is another very important spot. Like,
Mhm.
again, that's some of the things that we like about Ryan Bates. Like he can play along the entire offensive line. Like I love the idea of getting an offensive lineman that can live in multiple spots. Part of the reason why I love Kenyon Green so much, because
Yep.
other than center, he's literally played left tackle, left guard, right tackle, and he's
Mhm.
succeeded. And he's shown meanness and nastiness and
Yes.
athleticism and
Yes, he
impact at
has.
all of it. So like I like knowing you have somebody that can function and wear multiple hats if you're in a pinch. So nice job with Parham. I think no, let me not jump the gun, but go
I
ahead
don't
for your
think
big
you'll.
three
I
there.
don't, I don't think you'll get my last one. I'm
Okay.
going with Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be Jurgens or Cole Strange.
Okay, I think Cole Strange is going to go in day 2.
Oh,
I
you think
think
so
there's.
now? Yeah, he
I
started
think
to
there's
creep
just
up.
too much hype. That's the thing. I mean, obviously it's smoke. It's smoke season, but I don't know. Sometimes it just happens that way, especially with the smaller school guys. But I think Cam Jurgens had a great combine. Like, I mean, great combine. 9.94 RAS score. I mean, literally like 90th plus percentile in just about everything other than size. And I think that's the only thing you should worry about when it comes to him. 6'2", almost 6'3", 303 pounds, which would make him probably the lightest offensive lineman in the room for the Bills.
Mhm.
But I mean, we saw Ryan Bates gain weight when he got to Buffalo, and we know the strength and conditioning
Mhm.
team here. So I'm
Just give
not
him some
short
chicken
of.
wings. They'll put on weight fast.
Exactly. I'm not short on the confidence that he could gain some weight. And furthermore, he's got the athleticism where he could stand to gain some weight and
And
lose some
still be sufficient.
athleticism and still be perfectly functional. The big thing with his game is I talked about the athleticism already, but dude plays nasty. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, every single time he gets the chance to put dudes on the ground, he does it. Like, almost to a fault sometimes, where he will like ignore responsibility because he sees his guy is like off balance and he wants to put him on his ass. It's
Mhm.
kind of a problem sometimes, but you also want to see that nastiness on the interior of the offensive line. And then you match that with the athleticism that can function in pin and pulls like we love to see with Morse, but can also function in outside zones if we ever get to that point. So I really like his body of work. Cam Jurgens from Nebraska. Really, the only thing is, can you just gain a little bit of weight?
I wrote in my notes, if you could see it, I have Jurgens and then I put parentheses Kendall because I knew I had a very strong feeling about Jurgens
I
for
didn't
you
think that you were gonna
on
get
day
that.
3.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in sync, man. I know what's up.
I'm thinking he'll be a round 4 pick given the hype that's been going on right now, but I could also see him dropping around 5.
That's fair. I I think interior offensive line is something that I don't want to say it's not being talked about enough, but I'm right there with you with it being priority number 3. And I think you can make a case for it being priority number 2. And I think
Could.
what's nice about the Bills is they've filled a lot of these holes that like priorities 2, 3, and 4. It's very just much like, well, however the board falls, boom, go and get it. I think right
Exactly.
now, given the fact that they haven't addressed corner in free agency, is why corner is hands down
Yep.
number 1. But there's good value at other positions that if somebody like a Zion Johnson falls or a Jamison Williams falls, like you're sitting there at round 1 and being like, okay, like I'm going to take one of these guys because they're sick. And it's like, all right, I get it. And I think there's a bigger drop off from the round 1 corners to the round 2 and the round 3 corners, which is why even more so I want corner in round 1, because I think the drop off from wide receiver in round 1 to wide receiver in round 2 and even round 3 is nowhere near as significant as it is for corner. The drop off at corner is larger. And even the drop off at interior offensive line, maybe it's larger than receiver, because the guys at the top, I think Zion is tremendous. And I think Kenyon Green is really good. And that's why they're just so good that it skews the drop off.
Yes.
But you can make a case for a lot of these ones. And, that's part of the reason why I mentioned I'm just going to speak about running back now, just to be able to get it in, because I think it is in that conversation.
Yes.
I kind of cheated for this. My round 1 running back and my day 2 running back are the same person. It's Kenneth Walker. He's my round 1. He's my RB1. If the Bills take a running back in round 1, I'm very much okay if it was
be him.
Correct. If it's Breece Hall, I understand, right? I like his tape. I really like that he's a proven receiver out of the backfield. He's a do-it-all 3-down running back. And he's the guy, you and I have said it multiple times on the show in a variety of ways, put somebody on the field that doesn't allow, whether it's the offense or defense, that doesn't allow them to key in on what's going on. And if you put Breece Hall's in the game, nobody's going, well, here comes the pass, or, well, here comes the run. You don't know. And also, if it's going to be a pass and he's running a route, you don't know if it's going to be a swing pass, if it's going to be a screen, if he's going to be into block and then he's going to release late and it's going to get dumped down. You don't know if he's going to run a wheel route up the sideline or an actual route. You don't know if he's just going to release when Josh scrambles and do some QB friendly, sandlot stuff and then get the ball and take it for 17 yards. His threat is real when it comes to that 3-down potential and functionality in the passing game. But for me, Kenneth Walker's my RB1. His functionality in this type of offense, what it would be for the Bills, whether it's zone or gap scheme, his burst to the hole, his size and stature. I know he's smaller than Breece, but he's like 5'10", 210 pounds, runs a sub 4.4 40, and he runs with elusiveness and a physicality that my whole thing is, I want running backs that are going to eat up those 4-man boxes and eat up that space. And I like what Breece does on 4-man boxes, light boxes. I'm thinking 4-down defensive lineman in a 6-man box. Eat up those light boxes. I like what Breece does. I like that he has that Le'Veon Bell skip, right?
Yeah.
I'm worried that it loses him yards against the light box. And maybe it gets coached out of him. They're like, yo, bro, just hit the hole. Because we're trying to get yards.
Get decisive.
Correct. But Taylor, oh my goodness, what am I doing today? Kenneth Walker gets that ball and he's just going to eat up yards. I'm thinking about what the Bills are seeing, and what the Bills are seeing are light boxes. And I want that guy who can attack it with power, who can attack it with speed, contact balance, physicality. I also think his receiving ability, I think he's very much in that camp of absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Yes. When you see him receive coming out of the backfield in games and at the combine, he looked comfortable. He did not look like he was a fish out of water. He didn't look like he was struggling. He looked confident, cool, and smooth. It gave me a lot of hope for him at the next level. Again, he's my RB1. And if we took an RB in round 1, I'm okay if it's Breece. I would prefer it to be Kenneth Walker. But I love the idea of taking Kenneth Walker at 57, have him be this year's Jonathan Taylor. That's why he's in my brain. Taylor went in the second round. Give me Kenneth Walker. I think he's a true matchup problem for defenses, because now you have a legitimate threat in the backfield on the ground in a variety of ways. I think that's fantastic for me with him. And then my favorite running back in this draft,
I knew it.
Put him on day 3. Bang. I think he falls. Maybe he creeps into the 3rd round and he's a day 2 guy. James Robinson out of Alabama. I would love him in the 4th round. And again, it's because of what the Bills do. He is a guy who can, one, pass protect. He's one of the best pass protectors in this draft. I still think he's tops, although, I know you and others are in the Kyren Williams camp, which I think is very fair. Kyren Williams is a tremendous pass blocking running back. He really is. But Robinson, the fact that he's even in that conversation is a feather in his cap. The physicality, the size, 225 pounds, 6'1", almost 6'2", runs a 4.5, 340, which at that size is a menace. He's got great contact balance, power, but he's also got shiftiness. He makes decisive cuts. He can juke. Did I say James Robinson? I meant Brian Robinson.
You
sorry.
did. I figured
Brian
people
Robinson
would know.
From Alabama. Well done. Yeah, Brian Robinson from Alabama, and just his footwork is clean. And again, this whole light box, he's that guy. he's going to chew up those light boxes. And you know why? I know it, one, because I think of his skill set and his traits, but two, you saw him do it time and time again at Alabama. Because when you've got Bryce Young and Jamison Williams and John Mechie, you see light boxes if you're Alabama. Brian Robinson has experience chewing up yards against light boxes, both in terms of weight and also in terms of numbers in the box, but also his ability to function in RPOs, zone runs, some gap runs as well. I think he's a really ideal fit. I think he's an underrated 3-down back in the NFL because of what he can do on 3rd down pass protection, and also his receiving ability coming out of the backfield, I think isn't paid attention to enough. I think he's going to have a very long career in the NFL. He's going to be that dude who I think is still kicking and functional at like 32, 33, which shouldn't happen considering how physical he is and the shelf life of running backs. But he's somebody who ticks a lot of boxes for me at that running back position, Mr. Brian Robinson. I'm mad at myself that I called him James, but I mean, I guess that's a compliment because James Robinson's sick. Like, but too bad he plays on a team that isn't, so great.
Favoring him at all.
Yeah. He was such a darling last year. And then Urban Meyer was just like, no, ETN. And then he was like, well, no, we're going to have ETN play wide receiver. And everybody was like, what are you doing? Like, what is going on there? This episode, Kendall, as always, I have to thank you. Every time you come on, it's a banger. It's a great one. I'm putting up the Toodles You Guys banner because you're welcome. You deserve it. Because we're starting to wind down here and we're saying our goodbyes. Kendall, thank you so much for being here. You're tremendous. And just in case people don't know, although they should by now, tell them where they can find you and what you do and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Mirsky Kendall. I have been a little bit absent with my film clips recently. I've been in a weird spot where I don't know which positions to be breaking down right now, but I'll be getting down to cornerbacks shortly. So you guys will be seeing a lot of cornerback stuff on my Twitter over the next 5 days or so. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And more immediately, you can find me in about 8 minutes on the Cover One Buffalo show.
There you go. Doing some stuff there. Kendall, you're fantastic. I want to appreciate everybody who joined us live for this episode. The chat was super engaging and tremendous. Thank you everybody for the super chats, the comments, the really engaging conversation, all of that stuff. Oh, nice comment here from John saying I was glad to sneak in at the end live so I could smash that like.
Thanks,
please,
John.
if you're here, we still got a good amount of heads in here. Everybody smash that like. I say it every week. I know it's corny, but that like is tremendously important towards helping the show to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears and the algorithms and all that stuff. So thank you very much to everybody who rode live with us on this episode. If you are watching later, listening later on YouTube or any one of the podcasting apps or platforms, thank you very much for your like, your watch, your view, your download, whatever have you. Every single ounce and shred of support is greatly appreciated by myself and Kendall and the entire team. Also give a shout out to our sponsor. I like to mention at different points in different episodes, One Pie Pizza. You see it in the bottom right corner of your screen. The best pizza, hands down, in Buffalo. I give it my stamp of approval. I wouldn't just say it just to say it. They are the best pizza in Buffalo. Sweet sauce pie, tremendous homemade blue cheese. They're the best. The online menu can be found in the episode show notes, whether you're here on YouTube or any one of the podcasting apps and platforms. Go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Treat yourself as you have treated us tonight by joining us. Or again, if you're not, if this is today or a later day, you've treated us by tuning into this episode. So thank you very much for everybody who listened, watched, viewed, download, any type of anything in any way, shape, or form. Greatly appreciate you guys. Thank you very much to my guest on tonight's show, Mr. Kendall Mirsky. You are a gem. And to everybody, I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and all staying safe. Take care of one another. I will see you next week. And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.